What are Android intents? Well, an intent is some kind of a general operation, it's some kind of an action, you can say. This action can be of different type. For example, you may want to move from one activity to another. For example, you click somewhere and you want to move from one act of maybe you click the login button, you want to go into another activity inside the app, something like this. So from one activity to another, between fragments you want to move, or you want you have these broadcast intents for broadcast receivers if you want to start a service or another background service or something, whatever. So you need intents for this purpose. And so what is the definition here? Intent is some action, as I said, some action or operation, and is used to pass message between different components. Of course, you can pass any kind of messages, strings, integers, whatever operations, objects you can pass. Using intents, you can pass from one object, for example, one activity to the other, in a simple way. So intent is some action that is used to pass message between different objects. Yeah. So intents are used for activities, for broadcast receivers. So as I said, to move from one entity to one activity to other, or to pass and plus pass message from one activity to other, or to send some broadcast intent for any of the intended broadcast receivers. So these are the two applications that have. Of course, I also mentioned starting services, background services, whatever you need intents. Types of intents. There are actually two types of intents. One is explicit intent, and the other is implicit intent. Explicit intent is when while creating the intent, you pass the activity, like you with the name, like the class. For example, activity main dot class. If you want to come back to main, you mention the name of the activity, explicitly. So this is called an explicit intent. This name of this activity is mentioned. That is going to handle your intent. And implicit intent is when you don't know which activity will handle your intent. So you, for example, if you want to launch a web browser or something, you want to open a website. So the Android operating system will handle this intent in a way that it will search for a browser app, an appropriate browser app to open this web page for you, which you want to open using this intent. So this is what implicit intent is. So that's the two type of intents. So explicit intent when you really know the uh, name of the activity class and you mention that. And implicit intent is when you don't know the name of the activity. You just know you want to go to some web page, let's say, and you just say you want to go to this web page, and then Android OS handles this intent for you, like it finds the appropriate app to open this web browser. So that's the difference between explicit and implicit intents. Where are the intents used in Android? Well, have described previously. Of course, intents are used to switch between activities from one activity to another, back and forth. It's of course called explicit intents because you mentioned the name of the activity. For example, if A1 wants to go to A2 activity, then you mentioned this A2 dot class. While creating the intent. So you know the name of the activity that is going to handle the intent. That is called explicit intent. So to switch between the activities, you use intents. The second is when you want to send a message between the activities or components. Of course, there can be any other components. If you want to send a message, any message in any object form, string, integers, whatever, and objects. If you want to send from A1 to A2 activity, you need an intent. Intents are also used to start a service or a background service, whatever. They are also used to display a list of contents, and intents are also used to, of course, send the broadcast intents, to the intended broadcast receivers. And of course, intents are also used to open a web page from inside your app. If you are inside your app, and then you will need to fire an intent, with the page address, whatever. And this is in implicit intent because you don't know which activity is going to open this, because the Android is operating system is going to search in its OS any browsers that are installed, and it will then handle this intent and open this web browser for you. So this is implicit intent, of course. So if you want to open a web page from inside the app, of course, you also need an intent.